Tom returns to his office after lunch, but he's not back long when the receptionist out front buzzes him and tells him that two gentlemen are here to see him. The two gentlemen can only be those damn detectives. He saw them just last night. Why do they want to talk to him again today? Tom feels sweat start to form down the middle of his back beneath his shirt. He takes a moment to compose himself, straightening his tie a little, and then says, "Send them in." Tom comes out from behind his desk as Detectives Rosbach and Jennings enter his office. "Good morning," Tom says, closing the door behind them. He remembers how Dan urged him to cooperate with police. He must tell them about Bridget. "Good afternoon," Rosbach says pleasantly. Tom dislikes Rosbach's pleasantness. From his experience, it's always hiding something disturbing. Tom returns to his desk and wonders anxiously if they have a bombshell to drop. First, it was the gloves at the murder scene, then the call from the burner phone. What will it be this time? "You have a few more questions," Rosbach begins as they are all seated. "Sure you do," Tom says. The detective regards him impassively. "Where did you meet your wife?" Rosbach asks. "What difference does it make?" Tom says, surprised. "Bear with me," Rosbach says mildly, "and answer the question." "She was a temp here at the office. She was only here for a couple of weeks. She's a bookkeeper, but she was new in town, so she was doing a bit of temping. She wanted to be placed in an accounting firm. She worked on our floor for 2 weeks. When her assignment was over, I asked her out." Rosbach nods and tilts his head to the side. "Do you know much about your wife?" "I'm married to her. What do you think?" Tom says testily. His mind is racing. What have they found out? His heart begins to pound. That's why they're here, to tell him who his wife really is. Rosbach waits a moment, then leans slightly forward and assumes a more sympathetic expression. "I don't mean, do you know what her favorite toothpaste is? I mean, do you know where she came from, her past?" "Of course." "Which is what?" Rosbach asks, even though he suspects he's walking right into a trap. Tom can't think of anything else to say, so he tells them what Karen has told him. She was born and raised in Wisconsin. Her parents are dead. She has no brothers or sisters. "Anything else?" "Yeah, lots of things." Now Tom glares at the detective and says, because he can't bear the tension any longer, "Why don't you get to the point?" "All right," Rosbach says. "Your wife is not who she says she is." Tom looks back at him, deliberately impassive. "You don't seem surprised," Rosbach says. "Nothing you people say surprises me anymore," Tom replies. "Really," Rosbach says, "it doesn't surprise you to learn that you're married to a woman who disappeared and took on a new identity?" The detective leans forward and fixes his eyes on Tom's, and Tom finds that he cannot look away. "Your wife was not born Karen Fairfield." Tom sits perfectly still. He doesn't know what to do. Should he admit his suspicions about Karen, or pretend he has no idea? Into the silence, Rosbach presses. "Your wife has been lying to you about who she is." "No, she hasn't," Tom says stubbornly. "I'm afraid so," Rosbach says. "She invented Karen Fairfield and a background for her. It was well done, considering, but not good enough to bear real scrutiny. She would have been fine if she kept her nose clean. If she'd stayed out of trouble, no one would probably ever have been the wiser. But showing up at a murder scene was not a smart move." "I don't believe it," Tom protests. He tries to look indignant, but he knows he probably just looks like a desperate man in denial of the ugly truth. "Come now," Rosbach says, "you don't trust your wife much more than I do." "What?" Tom snaps. "What are you talking about? Of course I trust my wife." Tom feels himself flush up to the roots of his hair. If you're so goddamn smart, Tom says before he can stop himself, who is she then? He immediately regrets asking, dreading the answer. Rosbach sits back in his chair and says, we don't know yet, but we'll find out. Well, when you find out, I'm sure you'll let me know, Tom says bitterly. Of course we will, Rosbach assures him. He gets up to leave and adds, by the way, have you had a chance to think any more about where you were that night? The son of a bitch. Tom steels himself. He knows this is going to be painful. I didn't tell you everything last night, he says. Rosbach, standing, looks back at him, waiting. I didn't want to tell you because you'll twist it into something it isn't. Rosbach sits down again. We're dealing facts, Mr. Krupp. Why don't you give us a chance? Tom glares at him. I was supposed to meet someone. Bridget Cruikshank, a neighbor from across the street. Rosbach looks at him, waiting for more. She called me and wanted to meet at 8:30 down by the river. I went there, but she didn't show up. Rosbach retrieves his notebook from his suit pocket. Why not? She says her sister needed her. Why did she want to meet you? I don't know, Tom lies. He doesn't want to tell Detective about the dark-haired man Bridget saw around their house that morning. Bridget said she hadn't told the detectives about him. You haven't asked her? Tom knows he has to tell them. If you must know, before I met my wife, Bridget and I had we had an affair. Rosbach looks back at him steadily. Go on, he says. It was very brief. I broke it off just before I met Karen. And does your wife know? No, I never told her. Why's that? Why the hell do you think? And you have no idea why this Bridget wanted to meet you that night? Tom shakes his head. No, Karen's accident put it right out of my mind somehow. You're not sleeping with her now? No, absolutely not. I see. Tom wants more than anything to take a swing at the detective, but he doesn't. As they take their leave, Tom stands up and watches them go. He has to stop himself from slamming the door behind them in a fury.